everything each of us does in our own departments or divisions has to either help the city adapt, has to either help the city create, or it has to help the city mitigate. And I'll show you some examples. Adaptation need not be a big deal. This is a small adaptation response to those inundations of the subway. It was merely raising the grates by a few inches so that when a given amount of rain falls in a given amount of time, it won't flood the subway stations. Now there are big scale adaptations too, like seawalls, or this incredible project that Guy Nordenson is working on right now at MoMA, where he's going to try to slow the potential of a storm surge from a hurricane by working with landforms in upper New York Harbor. So big scale, little scale, it's adaptation that's going to protect us from the climate change that's already here. Now, resource creation. We haven't quite gotten to the point where the Statue of Liberty can generate electricity, but we have gotten to the point where a disused rail line can generate parkland. And this is an example, the High Line. It's an example of resource creation. It's taking what we have in the city, incredible intelligence and artistic ability, to take something that was written off, it was going to be demolished, and instead turn it into an incredible park that is drawing people from all over the world to see it. More than 1 million people have come to see the High Line since it opened in May. And what it did was it made land out of nothing. It created a resource. And finally, and this is going to be the focus of the talk, when we talk about mitigation, there's obviously direct mitigation, which is saving energy. It's putting insulation on your house. It's switching to fluorescent, high-efficiency light bulbs. It's simply using less energy. But the point is you still have to use some energy. So I think direct mitigation gets a lot of focus and a lot of talk, but it's only one component. The other component that's very important is indirect mitigation. And for New York, that means walkability and the maintenance of the public realm. The sidewalks of New York are really what sets us apart amongst other world cities. We often have these conferences with Hong Kong, where we try to compare and contrast what we're doing, what they're doing. There's similar calibrations of density, economic output, world city status, etc. But something that Hong Kong is not doing is taking care of its sidewalks. It's allowing second-story connections across streets. It's moving people away from city blocks as it builds out new. And as a result, they're losing vitality, and they recognize this. And they come here to study how is it that we are maintaining the vitality of our streets. Now, when you look at a street, whether it's Fifth Avenue or whether it's Van Brunt Street here in Red Hook, whether it's a simple street or a great avenue, the point is there is a finite amount of space between the buildings. And that finite amount of space has to accomplish a multiplicity of tasks. And these are functional tasks that get expressed in physical dimensions. For instance, sidewalks, bike lanes, bus lanes, travel lanes, parking lanes. All these things compete for space, and they also compete for space with things that are underground that might affect things above ground. Tree pits can't go in necessarily when there's a subway under the sidewalk. Yet you have to figure out how to fit all of these different functions in the space between the buildings. And there's no way to fit them all. And the real revolution that's coming now is to put the pedestrian first. And that's something that we had always advocated with Amanda Burden at City Planning, but it's something that's only come into practice with Jeanette at DOT. We now judge the success of our streets by their success to the pedestrian. And we have a clear hierarchy that says there's got to be continuity for the pedestrian first and foremost. And this gets expressed everything from the engineering drawings that go on when a street is reconfigured to the negotiations we have with developers as they design and build their buildings. And it demands an attitude of, well, you have to fight for it. You have to fight for your sidewalks in our case. We tell someone, if they come in and to show us a plan for a building, start at the sidewalk, set the tree pit,
Give enough clear path for the pedestrians. Then tell us about your building line. Don't draw the building line and assume that whatever's left over on the sidewalk is going to work. The buildings have to support the streets. They have to support the sidewalks. They start at the sidewalk. So there's this adage that if you want to build a great city, build a great street. I think we're on the right path to that now, because we are building streets from the point of view of the pedestrian. And it's an idea that's a 21st century idea, and it's what's going to distinguish this city of skyscrapers from other great cities growing around the world, is that we care about our pedestrian experience on the streets, and we will go the extra mile to support it, to fight for it, and to ensure that that's what's going to distinguish New York from other cities into the future. So with that, thank you all. Thank you, Dept.